some hope to die.
By these 50 countries, differing so much in race and religion, in language and culture.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
Well, I know they're lying. They tricked me once, but they're not going to trick me twice. The time is now. Hello and welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. David Penn, your host. Glad to be with you as always for this episode number. Tanner, good morning.
Good morning. It's 224.
224 on July 29th, 2025. Wow, what a year. In the year 2525. Reminds me of that. This podcast, 224, is going to talk a lot about religion. The title of the podcast is Referred for Criminal Investigation. Is it treason? And that is because we got a lot of very potent political issues to try to understand together. I'm really trying to come to grips with things. What is treason? Is this treasonous? Are these criminal offenses? What happens to our country if these people are indicted, convicted? What does it mean? What does it mean? And what would it mean if it was actually treason? Because the definition of treason means you're aiding an enemy. Who would that enemy be? Who would that enemy be? And we made that comment, Tanner, if you remember on that last podcast, we were talking about Thomas Paine. And I made the comment that they had, I just reported that at the time they had the Patriots and the Loyalists. And I made the comment that the Loyalists, because they supported the empire, the British Empire, they were really globalists. I actually had feedback in one of my channels on Getter that somebody said that the Loyalists were patriots and I need to read some of their diaries. So there's no end to the research or to mistakes that we can make when we're doing research.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the feedback. I get a lot of feedback. I don't answer everyone all the time, but I answer a lot of you as much as I can. I'm getting more and more traffic, but please send in your comments, your questions, and the issues that you'd like us to work on together, because there's a lot this community can do as a community when we connect to this and we realize we're all searching for truth together. And what would be more appropriate as a transition to talking about religion in America than the idea of searching for truth together? I was going to talk about religion today in the preamble, building on our Thomas Paine investigation. And I opened the newspaper today. Do you read the Minneapolis Star-Tribune?
No, I don't. No, I do not read any of the news.
I didn't read it either until I found myself in this role of punditry.
Yeah.
And now I read it, and I opened it up, and guess what I found?
What were they talking about?
The Trump administration urges federal workers to talk religion. Federal employees can display religious items at work, pray in groups while not on duty, and encourage coworkers to adopt their faith, according to new guidance released Monday by the Office of Personnel Management, which manages the federal civilian workforce. In a memo titled, quote, Protecting Religious Expression in the Federal Workplace, unquote, OPM Director Scott Kupor said that government employees, quote, must be allowed to engage in private religious expression in work areas to the same extent that they may engage in non-religious private expression. That's kind of a bombshell.
Yeah. How was the reaction on that? Were they reporting on how people are reacting to that?
That is not yet, that's TBD, because this just started. It's somewhat of a surprise.
Yeah.
You would have to say that the Trump administration, for all the criticism that's heaped upon them, and it is getting to be more and more all the time, they're certainly overturning the apple cart of the secular humanist bureaucratic state when they're going. I didn't know anybody even believed in God that worked for the government. That's how bad my attitude is. No, I'm sorry if you're a government worker, like an elected official. If you're elected, you're getting paid by the government. And I mean, I'm not here to judge anybody, but I've just come to the conclusion that our government is so secular
Yeah.
that people don't really have God at the center of their life if they're in the government.
No, I can see that too, because I kind of view it like if they are a part of any type of religion, it's more of just being a part of a fan club. They're not actually serious about it. At least that's my point of view, you know?
Well, these are judgments, and I don't think they're appropriate because I know there's people that are elected that watch this that they're going to say, "Well, we really are. I am a person of faith."
Yeah, and I think that this change is going to, like, help clear that up. Because like, from the outside for me, like, when I watch it and when they only, like, mention God when it's convenient, it gives me that feeling. Because it's just like, I don't like to compare like
That
this.
convenient. That would be called using God.
Yeah.
Convenient when it's convenient for me. And that's one of the things I want to say in starting this off. Not that I didn't plan on going here, but I want to share with you if we're going to, as a people, in a democratic form of governance, where 50% of the people plus one make something legal under constitutional law, but it violates religious law and religious tradition, and we're going to support that in our party units or in our party, perhaps we should consider not blaspheming and invoking God's name to bless our unholy activities. On the other hand, on the other hand, there's a sea change. And I want to talk about this religious issue because this issue actually goes back, believe it or not, to the founding of the country. And I did this on purpose because I know I made a mistake. Not, well, I made a mistake in how I was thinking about things and how I expressed myself because I said that Thomas Paine didn't have to directly mention Christ or any of the passages from the Bible, yet he was referring to, in Crisis of America, referring to the story of Abraham and Isaac, talking about bondage, or maybe the liberation of the Jews from Egypt. It was a very religious theme. And I thought, boy, I didn't do that right because I know Thomas Paine, his history, and he actually was very critical of organized religion. And I thought, boy, I'm going to go back and take a look at this. And it really opened up for me the depth that this issue of religion in America has been in our face since day one. In fact, we're in the MAGA movement called white Christo nationalists. And it's a very pejorative, labeling, right? I mean, if you believe if you're a supporter of President Trump and someone calls you a white Christo nationalist, well, you are white, you are a Christian, Tanner,
Yeah.
and you're then espousing a nationalist viewpoint. I don't even know if you support President Trump. It's none of my business. I never asked you. But if you did, at your age, you could be called a Nazi,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah, correct. That is definitely the climate of today.
Well, you run into that with the people your age that you talk about, or when you're looking at social media, you see that theme, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's all over the place. It's on just common social media for my age group. Luckily, my friends are not that gone. So I none of my friends have ever labeled anybody a Nazi.
Or a white Christo nationalist,
Yeah, I
which is
honestly
not the same thing.
for you, you just broke that down what that means. I've heard that term so many times and never understood fully what the hell it meant.
White Christo nationalist. That's what the MAGA movement is being accused of being, that we're bringing a religious viewpoint into the public square with the First Amendment there as a block, which says, First Amendment to the Constitution of our great United States. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Okay. Why did that happen? Well, I wasn't there, so all I can do is speculate. And I'm going to speculate that the Catholic Church was complicit or possibly ran the deal. You know, when you're in a user-usee relationship, it's hard to tell who's the user and who's the usee. I mean, who was running the show, the church or the monarchs?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. But the church was definitely in a collaboration with those hereditary rulers of Europe and became quite corrupt.
Yeah.
And it led to the Protestant Revolution. You're not a Catholic. You're in the Protestant way of thinking, right? Your
I
your
think
religion,
so.
your religious background.
Yeah, I believe. I'm sorry. I'm
Did you
still learning a bunch of these
well, did you
terms.
not go to the Lutheran church
I
when you
did. I grew up
that'd
in a
be
Lutheran.
Martin Luther. He's the one that tacked the protest up on the church door.
Yeah.
We're going to have to go over this history, I can see. Very noteworthy. There was a revolt against the Catholic Church and all it stood for. And we've been talking about religion a lot lately because we've been, I've been trying to understand you. I mean, I want to know how you feel about this because what I'm seeking is a unity that can bring about a long-term republicanism into our state. And we got all these different Christian groups. We got people, the fence sitters. We got the intense white Christo nationalists unabashedly saying that Donald Trump has been chosen by God to save the country. We got that group. We got a group of very leftist Christians that are socialists, but they all profess a faith in God. In fact, still to this day, to this moment, I looked it up this morning on the way in. 81% of Americans say that they believe in God.
Really?
81%. 81%. I mean, there's going to be thousands of people that watch this podcast. Now, obviously, it's not a very impartial group of people because I believe in God. But man, 80%? Does this 80% know what we're facing? I mean, how could you believe in God and be and this I'm not saying this if you're a leftist and you're watching and you're welcome here. If you're a leftist and you believe in God, how do you make that trip? Well, I'll tell you how you make it. Just like they do it with uh, m- Marxist Islam. There are certain tenets of the faith which fit into the ideas of social justice. That's how you make it. But it's a scam. And we gotta get good about this because we in Minnesota have all these Christian people and Muslim people and Jewish people. They all profess faith in God, but they're not together. They don't see any commonality. And in fact, in a lot of cases, they hate each other. I saw it with my own eyes. I didn't know it existed. I mean, I know all these groups could have hatred for the Jews because I remember I was in a Catholic church. I was about 19. I was playing at midnight mass. Wasn't that nice of me? Of course, it was for money, but I also enjoyed the service, right?
Hmm.
And I'm playing Ave Maria, and some young man walked up and knocked the violin right out of my hand because I was Jewish
Hmm.
at a Catholic midnight mass. And I looked at him and he said something very mean to me. I thought to myself, wow, I hope you didn't break my violin. I didn't really care about the insult. I cared about my instrument. I've had this happen in other circles. I never really think about it. Anti-Semitism doesn't really bother me unless there's a gun involved. Then it gets rather serious. Because, my age group, I bet they don't. You have a beautiful young daughter. We don't mention her name.
Yeah.
But I bet she doesn't know. Do they still say this one? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Do they still use that?
I teach her that.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
going to get in trouble with the constabulary.
Well,
Bad.
I'm building her strong, so I don't care if I'm in trouble with someone else.
All righty then. We'll move right along. Religion is a belief in and worship of superhuman power or powers. Superhuman. That's an interesting definition they got in the Webster's Dictionary these days. One could say artificial intelligence is superhuman, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Right? That's a superhuman capability. Or robotics, you know, leap over a building with one jump. I mean, they can get that working. Superhuman skills. It's not about God or gods. According to the current definition, religion is around a belief and worship of superhuman powers, not necessarily God. And anthropology of religion, something I'm trained in and I enjoyed tremendously, explores how religious beliefs and practices shape human societies, individual lives, and focuses on the cultural, social, and historical context of religion. So I am trained in this, and I have to say that President Trump's administration allowing Christians or Jews or any other group to pray in groups while not on duty and to encourage coworkers to adopt their faith, that would be called a revolution in government. Because government is, in our country, because of that First Amendment, no law respecting the establishment of religion, you know, our Constitution is so badass that people have figured out how to exploit its texts for their own personal gain. And I believe, thinking about this anthropologically, key aspects. Ritual and symbolism. Rituals and symbolic systems are central to religious practice. Well, I'm going to say that our government is a secular humanist religion. Secular humanism. Rituals and symbols. Rituals and symbols. The American flag.
Yeah.
There's no religious symbol there, but it's a powerful symbol, correct?
Correct.
Symbolic systems of secular humanism. The rainbow flag. Symbols. Symbols that don't refer to a God, but refer, in fact, to some other form of religious system. Social structure, social hierarchies, roles, and norms. Well, we have a very intense social structure in our government and in our universities that denote special roles and rituals of inclusion. Like, for example, graduating from college. You've now finished your secular humanist education.
I'd go back a step to the first one of symbols.
Yeah?
I know a better symbol than the pride flag or the US flag. The US dollar.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's very insightful.
It makes me think there's oh my gosh, it's an older movie. They put on these glasses and then they can see that there's like these aliens that are like it's like Matrix type stuff. And this guy puts on the glasses and there's a guy holding
With
dollar
Rowdy
bills.
Roddy Piper. I've
Pro-
seen, yeah,
yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah. I think
yeah,
it's like they live
yeah,
or something.
yeah.
Yeah. The part where he puts on the glasses and he looks at the money in the guy's hand and it's pieces of paper that says, "This is your God."
There you have it. Perfect.
Yeah.
And it says in the good book, if you think it's a good book, and I ask you, do you? You can't serve both God and mammon.
Mhm.
Got to make a choice. Got to make a choice. Power and identity. Religion can be a source of both power and identity. Well, that certainly holds true for a secular humanist government.
Yeah.
You can't get any more powerful than being El Presidente. So I see the government in a very religious frame. And it's been spreading that religion since Mr. Weber taught me the origin of the species in 7th grade at Highland Park High School in 1971. He didn't teach me Adam and Eve, he didn't teach me the story of the garden. That was a fable. That was merely a story. Nothing here to pay attention to. Pay attention that you came from an ape. Let's see here. What is the wisdom I can gain from rising up from an ape? I guess I'm a animal,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
But when I read the story of Adam and Eve, I'm the descendant of the divine creation of a most high God in all of the problems that I faced my whole life. Interestingly, when I read that story over and over, I see every mistake I made in that story. I'm thinking, why didn't they teach that story to me in school? Of course, I read it in Hebrew, but it was too young at a time where I was not paying attention. But I could have in seventh grade benefited from a deep understanding of the symbology of that story. And I didn't get any Adam and Eve my entire secular education, but I know I'm a descendant of an ape. And occasionally I'm told I'm kind of ape-like.
I got into arguments with my seventh grade science teacher about that because he taught us the scientific process of how you're supposed to be able to observe it and to be able to know if it's an actual thing. And I had brought up to him, like, how do we know that this evolution is real? Because who was standing there to watch it?
What a great transition to Thomas Paine, because that's exactly his point. Now, Thomas Paine wrote that Crisis in America, which was so beautiful. And I know Thomas Paine was a very interesting dude. He not only was a founding father of the American Revolution, but he actually was a French revolutionary. He was involved in the French Revolution, kind of like a revolutionary for hire, like Antifa. He'll go any place, anywhere, anytime to throw a stone at somebody. And when he died, only 6 people came to this very famous man's funeral because he was very critical of a religion. Very critical, unbelievably critical. And I bring this up because it's going to explicate that this religion issue goes back to the way back. There's nothing new about this problem.
Yeah.
Every national church or religion has established itself by pretending some special mission from God. This is Thomas Paine. That has been communicated to certain individuals. The Jews, they have their Moses. The Christians, their Jesus Christ. Their apostles and saints. And the Turks, their Muhammad. As if the way to God was not open to every man alike. Each of those churches show certain books, which they call Revelation. I think there's even a book called Revelation, isn't there?
Yeah.
Or the Word of God. The Jews say that their Word of God was given to Moses face to face. The Christians say that their Word of God came by divine inspiration. The Turks say that their Word of God, the Koran, was brought by an angel from heaven. Each of those churches accuses the other of unbelief. And for my part, I disbelieve them all. As it is necessary to affix right ideas to words, I will, before I proceed further into the subject, offer some observations on the word revelation. It's appropriate to what you were just saying.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
I don't know.
Listen to this. Revelation, when applied to religion, means something communicated immediately from God to man. No one will deny or dispute the power of the Almighty to make such a communication if he pleases. I think he has a sense of humor. He's saying, man, if God wants to talk to you, he can do it. And I have to say, I can testify to that. But admitting for the sake of a case that something has been revealed to a certain person and not revealed to any other person and to any other person, it is a revelation to that sole person only. When he tells that revelation to a second person, a second to a third to a fourth, and so on, it ceases to be a revelation to all those people. It is a revelation to the first person only, and hearsay to every other. And consequently, they are not obliged to believe it. And I've said this, when God appeared to me, all it did was disturb me, but I couldn't get out from dealing with it because it was a personal revelation. Or for those of you who want to say so, mental illness. It is a contradiction in terms and ideas to call anything a revelation that comes to us secondhand, either verbally or in a written form. Revelation is necessarily limited to the first communication. After this, it is only an account of something which that person says was a revelation made to him. That's like what you said to your biology teacher.
Yeah.
Can't prove it. Prove it.
Yeah.
Can't. It's a story. So Thomas Paine, at the beginning of the Republic, was bringing up very difficult critiques of what everybody else believed. And I said everybody believed, so he didn't have to be didactic with his writing. But as a matter of fact, not everybody believed. He didn't believe. He was what they call a deist. You've heard deist, right?
You'd have to
Deism.
explain it to me.
Deism is belief that you will find God, not in a book, but in the natural way, in the natural environment. You will discover God through your own intellectual and emotional exploration of the natural world.
Hmm.
It will be self-revelatory if you just spend the time meditating on what you see. You're not going to find it in a religion. Thomas Paine was not a respecter of religions. In fact, he said they were a scam for power and money.
Yeah, I mean, when you're coming from the British Empire, I guess I could understand why you'd have that viewpoint.
Well, he did. He did. He did. He goes on, I have a right to believe them or not. Such a, I mean, he even, listen to this one. Wow. When I am told that a woman called the Virgin Mary said or gave out that she was with child without any cohabitation with a man, and that her betrothed husband Joseph said that an angel told him so, I have a right to believe them or not. Such a circumstance required a much stronger evidence than their bare word for it. I mean, come on. That seems obvious, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But we have not even this. For neither Joseph nor Mary wrote any such matter themselves. It is only reported by others that they said so. It is hearsay upon hearsay. And I, Thomas Paine, do not choose to rest my belief on such evidence. Wow. No wonder only a handful of people showed up when he died. This guy wasn't holding back in 1776. Come on. I mean, this is not that big a deal now, but then you get tired. In fact, he got indicted for this kind of talk.
Did he?
He did. He had to run away to France.
When did he write this?
It's about 1776, about the time of the Revolution.
Was it after America had a freedom of speech and everything?
Yes, it was.
He said, I got freedom of speech. I can say this now.
Let me let it out, baby. So he's very critical. The Christian theory is little else than the idolatry of ancient mythologists, accommodated to the purposes of power and revenue, and yet remains to reason and philosophy to abolish the amphibious fraud. I mean, this guy was anti-Christian.
Yeah.
Does that make him anti-Christ? It is the kind of questions you have to ask, because there was a lot of that anti-Christ stuff going around at this time. These people, what were called free thinkers, like Freemasonry, these people were set free from hundreds of years of religious dogma because of the so-called Enlightenment. And, life is an experiment. When your daughter was young, when she was crawling on the floor, did she put everything in her mouth?
Yeah.
She could have choked herself to death, right?
Yeah.
So you took the things away from her, correct?
Correct.
There you go. That's all you need to know about human beings. We're on an experiment. We'll put anything in our mouths, even secular humanism, even things that are not good for us. We'll try it because we're experimenting with consciousness. Let us not be too judgmental of our brothers and sisters, and let us ask them not to be too judgmental of us, because we don't have this figured out. We're working on it. And politics is our barometer of where we are in working such things out. I say this because I really would like to see the Jews and the Christians and Muslims, the believers of the state of Minnesota and of this great country, come together, not be divided. They have the Tower of Babel, right?
Yeah.
God made them speak many languages because they were building a tower to heaven to take. They weren't just building there for, it wasn't just a building operation for a scenic overlook. They wanted to take over. That's human arrogance, right? So God said, whoa, we got to make them speak many different languages so they can't get organized. And you know what? Lutherans a language, Protestants a language, evangelical Christians a language, Reformed Jewish is a language. Let me just talk about Jewish. I don't have to piss anybody off, except my own people, and they're already pissed off at me, so I'm not making a mistake there. There's Reformed Jews, conservative Jews, and Orthodox Jews. And within all three branches of Judaism, there are little sub-branches. And there's one thing that runs through the whole deal. They hate each other. They say they don't. But when you're privately with them, quietly, in Yiddish, you should hear how those old-timers talk about those Reformed Jews. You know what they call them? Goyim. Do you know what Goyim means?
No.
It means not Jewish.
What a simple word.
Goyim. That's what so when the Christians United for Israel are hanging out with the black hats, when the black hats go to the kosher restaurant for some knish bread and some tea, and they speak to each other in Yiddish, they go, oh, shkutzim, goyim. They're not very, and I can only say this because I've been in those conversations. I mean, I've been there. I was younger looking at the old rabbis going, wow. And then, of course, black people, Schwarzes. You ever heard that one?
No.
Schwarzes. Doesn't even sound good, does it?
No.
No, it doesn't sound. I don't think Schkutzim sounds good either, does it? These are because these are not nice words. But they're Yiddish words and you don't know them. But they don't like Reformed Jews, but they would never admit it out loud. And they're going to be mad at me. And someone might jump up and say, that's not true. I'll probably get somebody in the live chat or in the comments that says, you're wrong. That's not true. And I'm just going to say, for you, thank God you've had such a wonderful ecumenical experience.
Yeah. Well, it's similar within Christians too, because I remember when I was younger going to a Lutheran church, and my great grandma, who was Catholic, was not too happy and very verbal about it. So
I just talked about my stepson. I took him to a Lutheran service just last Christmas.
yeah.
We had to leave. He's a Catholic. He's Catholic.
Yeah.
And man, he was sitting there. The church was jammed. I was invited by Mr. Stan Hamilton, the chief executive of the CD3 executive board. He's the boss. I thought that was so nice because, Stan just had, just beat me in the contest to be CD3 king.
Yeah.
And he invited me because he wants to have a relationship with me. Yeah, I don't dislike Stan. In fact, I like him.
Yeah. Isn't Stan the one we have a short of him talking
Yes.
about? Yes.
10,000 stands.
Yeah. We need more stands.
We need more stands. That's right. Go find the short. That was long before Stan invited me to church. Because some of us understand the importance of speaking eloquently one to another, even though we disagree. Stan and I never have had a crossword with each other. And why should we? I mean, my goodness gracious, if we're going to start to speak ugly to each other, we're not going to get anything done. I want to convince him, and he wants to convince me. Now, I know we have a young superstar politician here on this channel that doesn't see it quite that way. We'll see how he sees it when he's 66 years old. Because when I was 33, I was prone to get into fights.
Yeah.
I just don't do that anymore. I don't fight every fight. It doesn't mean in my heart of hearts, I'm confused about who these people are and what they're doing. But like a religion, politics is about seeking converts. See, we're told religion and politics is two separate issues, but they actually do the exact same things, right?
Right.
Like, don't Lutherans want more Lutherans?
Yeah.
Don't Republicans want more Republicans?
Yeah.
And these political movements, what's the best way to lead from behind? Get a bunch of politicians to run out front and front for you. Because what we're doing here right now is religious. We have a group of people that do not believe in God, and they run our government. They're called secular humanists. Their yeshiva or their seminary is called the university. And that's where they are taught the language of science, the rituals of science, the great men of science. Science which does not believe in God. Individual scientists might, but the discipline itself says if you can't prove it, it doesn't exist. Do you agree with that statement? I'm sure somebody's going to disagree with me. That's my layman's belief. If you can't find it, if you can't prove it, if you can't, and you can't study God. I mean, he might show up. If he wanted to, he sure could. And
Yeah.
then, okay, so what are we going to do with science then? But this is secular. This is secular humanism. This is taking human experience out of the context of a religious tradition, of religious culture, and creating a new culture. And it comes right from the Enlightenment, right for the search for freedom. Because if we're free, the good Satanists will say, why would you have any limits on you if you're free? You could do anything. Doesn't that feel good?
Mm.
Wait a second. Am I getting tricked? That makes a lot of sense. Who's this God that's putting rules on me? If I'm really free, if I really have unalienable rights to life and to liberty and my pursuit of happiness, that almost sounds satanic. Right in our founding documents. There's nothing else in there about what the life, the liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is related to. They're just unalienable rights. In other words, these people were so badass that made these texts. They said, hey, if you want to be a Satanist, go for it. If you want to be Thomas Paine and basically tongue in cheek say, come on, Mary, come on, come on. I mean, that's the fundamental of the faith. When you start pulling on that one, and he even says, I'm not going to go find it. He said that such things were common in the era, in that pagan era, that frequently gods mated with women and their children were divine. And he's correct. I mean, his critique, if you want to go read Paine on religion, his critique is so correct. It's a little scary. And I think we need to be scared. This whole issue of religion and politics is as screwed up as the issues of men and women. You know, why do we know it's screwed up? Because over half of the marriages end in divorce. So people don't have a common language to move forward in the fundamental building block of a religious community, which would be the family. Wait a second. I'm losing myself here. You mean the fundamental building block of a religious community isn't working? Must not have common goals, must not have a common language. Wait a second. Wait a second. Back to Adam and Eve. Wait. The Adamic curse for women. You'll have pain in childbirth. Ooh, that's intense. That's very intense. Not very nice. And you will cleave to your man, and he shall rule over you. Ladies, how do you feel about that? That could be a reason not to believe, because who wants to buy into a system where you're going to be ruled over like you're in bondage? Boy, there's some real issues to go through here, isn't there?
Yeah.
Confusing. Of course, see, now I've been thinking about this stuff all my life. I got to figure it out for me. Maybe I'll be elected president someday because I'm able to articulate this in a way that works for everyone. See, we have to find a way to unify now, to understand these issues in a new way. Haven't you had enough of being stuck on this cross of woe the last since 1973? Isn't this long enough to be hung up on this Roe versus Wade in this abortion wedge issue? Hasn't this lasted long enough? All this human suffering, all these divorces, all this divorce court, family court stuff, all these hurt children. Hasn't this gone long enough? And now we got a whole new class of crazy things going on. We're experimenting. What could be a greater experiment than see if a man can go in for a gender transition surgery? Let's see how it turns out.
Yeah.
It's an experiment after all. Remember, medicine is both a science and an art. You know, sometimes when you paint something, it doesn't turn out too good. You just rip it up and throw it away.
Mm.
And that's what consciousness is, and that's what religion is. Religion is a way of organizing our consciousness. So I'm bringing up a lot of questions because we have a very divided community of believers who are confronted with artificial intelligence, which is a god in and of itself because it has superhuman powers and people worship it and are looking for it to solve all of humanity's problems. If we have a new religion around superintelligence, super artificial intelligence, if a new religion is springing up because of science, which I'm going to say it certainly is, or as Tanner said, around money.
Yeah. I could even say I might be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't science kind of made by the church. They were the ones that kind of started investing in the idea of science as a way of like proving the design of God. So couldn't you argue that the religion of science is just a branch from Christianity?
You could.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to argue it for very long,
No.
but you could start down the road. And there is, and still to this day, there is a group of scientists and scientific research that, like a deist, like deism, sees the hand of God in the natural world, and that scientific research is revealing God in the natural world through research. I think it was Einstein who said, I've pulled back the veil and I see God
Yeah.
through mathematics.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I would fall probably around a little bit deism in my beliefs because I do believe that the natural way does show the math essentially. Like a student when you're doing a test, you have to show your math or show your work. When we go into science and we see all like the golden ratio numbers, the Fibonacci cycle, there's patterns that you can see the math, you can see the work. And to me, that proves that there's a divine being designing it.
The entire Asian core philosophy, yin yang, is an observation of the natural world so that old people can teach young people to lessen their suffering about how the natural world works in those patterns with constants. And that is a kind of a divinity.
Yeah.
And so we have to understand the secular and the religious and how that's going to work in our country. Because in the 3 minutes of this 15-minute preamble that went for 45 minutes, my problem in working with you, because there are people that work with me that watch this. My problem is in politics, there's no discipline. There's no follow through. Not none, but very little. A lot of talking, very little action, and not a lot of um, common investment in what to do next and why to do it next. Religion makes a very convenient way to organize political activity. That's why the left is so nervous about white Christo nationalism, because really, and as we've said in some recent podcasts, our entire foreign policy is run by an eschatological apocalyptic worldview, which means our whole country is still being run out of that religious frame. Yet we take no responsibility for it. We say we're secular humanists in our government. And now President Trump is saying, now that let's just knock off the BS. Actually, the government is religious. Right now, it's anti-religious, has been for decades. I mean, obviously, if you're going to legalize a woman's right to choose, uh, that would be anti-religious to do that. We just don't talk that way. I mean, we have other ways of talking about it. But when legalize gambling and legalize prostitution and legalize drug use and legalize this, that, thus, and so, you're really critiquing the fundamentals of the old texts. Okay, let's get off of this now. Let's let's start a movement where we try to transcend this gap and start to develop a language and a way of talking to each other which unites the various schools of faith, because we're facing something that is utterly faithless and uncompromising with us. And all of this Trump era softening, it's just a distraction. That AI is coming. Those robots are coming. That biotechnology is coming right now. And we're going to have to make a decision as people. Do we want to be ruled by that technology, or are we going to rule over it? And the only way we're going to rule over it is if we stop these divisions and unify politically and get involved in politics. And this is the rub. When we get involved in politics, what is going to organize our behavior? Because we're ineffective because nothing is organizing it except conflict. No, we're going to have to organize around a set of beliefs which move us forward together. The left's not going to like hearing it, but guess what? They don't have anything to organize them to move forward together. They don't have it. They don't have it. We do. So our greatest strength to organize, which is our faith, we're blocked from using it because of the separation of church and state, which is just words on a page. I'm not saying that we establish a state religion. I'm saying that the people that get involved in politics, let us find a common language and set of beliefs that we can use to carry us forward, and let us be uncompromising in our pursuit of that new language and that new unity. That unity that can unify the city and the country, that can unify the people that have nothing. Because that's what we got. Nothing. Yeah, you might have a house with a mortgage or an apartment, or you might own a car. You got something. But compared to the people that are really having something, we all got nothing. That's what we got. Nothing. And you know, it says in the end, the meek shall inherit the earth. Now, when you say meek, a lot of ways to talk about the word meek. It might just mean the people that don't have anything, in the end, unify through the precinct strategy, unify through a new language of communication, get involved in politics, join your party, and start to endorse and elect people that will not sell out. I don't want to hear that they swear or they got this or they got that, because we got 535 sellouts in the Congress. Well, not every one of them. Maybe. Maybe there's a few. But when it's 6.9 million per seat per year, easy to sell out with that kind of lobby money washing around. So we need a new language. We need a new way of doing things. We need a new way of getting together, and we need to transcend the divisions which are being exploited by those who are doing a very effective job of ruling over us. Let's play number one, please.
Russia will never come back to the West as it was, never again. Sorry to say that. I'm not happy with that because Russia is too close to Hungary. And the Ukraine. What is basically, again, the problem? The Russians accepted in a very difficult way that Central European countries like my home, Hungary, became member of NATO. They always criticized that move, saying that it's unfair because it was promised. Nobody knows exactly whether did it happen or not, but it was promised that the ex-Soviet Union dominated territories will not join NATO. But we did. Good for us anyway. And the Russians started to live with that. In that concept, Ukraine was the buffer zone between NATO and Russia. And then now, as we started to incorporate more and more Ukraine, first at the military level, developing their army, then even at the diplomatic level to speak about the possible membership of Ukraine to NATO, we converted the buffer zone into a war zone. So it's not anymore a buffer zone. That's the problem. And it's history. It's not about 1 or 2 decades issue. So how we imagine the territory between the NATO and Russia, how we call it and how to manage it, how we provide the future for the people and the territory. So these are the real big and difficult challenges ahead of us.
One big change.
When we jumped into the war, that was always my argument to the Westerners, that don't consider that war as our own war. It's not the war of the West. It's a war between two Slavic nations, a brutal but a brotherhood war. Russians and Ukrainians. Isolate them, have them, but don't say that this is our war. That's exactly what you have done. Basically, Biden president came to Warsaw and said, Putin must fail. Guys, it means that you are in the war. So why we have done it? Nobody knows the answer of that, you know. So it was a very short-sighted idea. Probably they thought that they could weaken Russia. I was always sure at the very first moment that a war will make Russia stronger than it was prior to the war. That's our history. First World War, Second World War. When they start the war, they are weaker. As the war is going ahead, they are getting stronger and stronger and stronger. That's the lesson of the Hungarian history.
Well, that is about as clear a explanation of this situation as I've ever run across.
And that's the prime minister where?
Of Hungary, Viktor Orban. Viktor Orban. Incredible. The two antagonists, the brothers that are at war with each other in this brutal Slavic war, they're talking in Istanbul, Turkey. Nothing much is coming to the talks, but another POW swap was agreed upon. President Trump said that in 50 days, he was going to impose secondary sanctions on Russia. He says he's very unhappy with Vladimir Putin's incalcitrance in setting up the conditions for a truce, a ceasefire. And he came out yesterday and he said, man, I know what the result's going to be. I'm not waiting 50 days. 10 days from now, I'm imposing secondary sanctions. And this is a bombshell. I don't know where Trump's heading with this one, but he's putting a lot of pressure here now on Russia and India and China to discontinue their trade in oil. And that oil that India and China buy from Russia keeps the Russians in the game. And what Trump is saying is if you keep this up, you want to sell into the United States, India, and China, it's 100% tax. In other words, the end of the road. Well, that'll be the end of the road of a lot of things. So he's trying to create divisions within the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, a new political union. He's trying to divide the center of it, Russia, China, India. He's trying to get the Indians at least to pull out in hopes that they're going to achieve an economic benefit from the United States. He's trying to push the Russians to the negotiating table. Carrots and sticks. The United States, for the first time in 15 years, are pre-positioning nuclear weapons in England. Carrots and sticks. We can do a lot of business together, or we can all die together. Make a decision and live with your decision. Wow. Germany has agreed to send 5 more batteries of Patriot anti-aircraft missiles to the Ukraine. They're running a little bit short supply of those Patriots. They're going to have a good eating at the Patriot factory for many years to come. Let's play number 2 as a transition to talking a little bit about the Middle East.
Who are we? What is wrong with us? What is going on? We are witnessing before our very eyes, Mr. Speaker, genocide in Gaza, and we say nothing. I am amazed at how this country that stands for liberty and justice for all, this country that has a Statue of Liberty, how this country can see what's happening in Gaza and not call it what it is. There's a fear among us. We refuse to speak truth to power. We refuse to speak truth about power. Well, today, I'm going to do it. And I'm doing it because these are precious babies that are being slaughtered.
That is Congressman Al Green. I think he's from the Houston area in Texas. I have a few comments about this. Number 1, what a speech. Number 2, that cane.
I know.
Wow.
It's so striking, and I can't help but think he looks at himself in the mirror and he's like, Abraham Lincoln has his hat, George Washington has the curly hair, that I'm going to be the cane guy.
I wonder if some kind of long knife comes out of that cane. You can pull that top out and there's a weapon there, like they used to have in the old days. But that cane is badass.
Oh, dude, it's so badass. I would have a cane like that too.
It is so fine. But what's really interesting about Al Green, put up this next picture. from the Pro-Life America. Al Green's talking about the precious babies, but according to the Pro-Life of America, his rating on babies is F.
Rated
So when
F.
it comes to settler colonialism and issues of discrimination and whites and blacks and all that liberation theology, we're going to talk about the sacred babies being killed by the Israelis in Gaza. But when it comes right here to our own home, pro-life says he gets an F for fail. But I wasn't satisfied with that. I wanted to go the other way. Put up the next picture. Here's reproductive freedom for all. This is the other side of the football. The pro freedom of choice movement, they give them 100 out of 100. So when it comes to American babies, that's not really his concern. I think that's very interesting. So what we have here is not an issue of faith, not an issue of philosophy, but an issue of politics. What a great way to organize my constituents in my community who are mostly black and create division with Jews who seem to be mostly white, and to use it as an issue of discrimination and of settler colonialism, as black people suffered. The foundational black Americans, they were brought here not consensually, they're brought here by slaves. So they're drawing a connection between the experience of the black American and the experience of the Palestinian. And we're using sacred babies as the totem, except not that sacred. So this is a very interesting politic that's going on in our country, and young people like Tanner. Tanner, are people your age supportive of Israel?
No. It's pretty scary how my friend or my cohort kind of talk about Israel right now.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's scary to me because I just as a kid learning the history, I showed a lot of pride in America because I was like, besides all the people that are like, oh, we're so full of racists, and I knew that they're individual racists, but I was just so proud of America that we had moved past it. And then to see that times get a little tough and now there's so much anti-Semitism.
Blame it on the Jews.
And
Blame
it's a
it on the
pendulum.
Jews. Blame it on the Jews.
It's terrible.
See, I can do it. It works very easily. Rolls off the tongue. It's like mother's milk. And of course, Israel has lost its mind. They're widening their military offensive in the central Gaza. I get a lot of criticism from Jews that come on. I was even mentioned on X with Alex Jones and Owen Schroyer, and the guy wrote in, for all you people that are continuously criticizing Israel, why don't you talk about Islamic socialism? And I wanted to respond, but in that group of very esteemed podcasters, I'm just the tail on the dog on that deal. Nobody responded, so I didn't respond. But I wanted to say, we just covered it last week about Islamic socialism. We're right there. So if you're watching me, go back and watch last week. We covered it extensively. I am covering Islamic socialism and the threat that it plays to our Republican form of government. We talked about it directly. But Israel is continuing to prosecute its war in the Gaza, and it's got that new humanitarian city it's putting together.
Great.
And more aid groups are warning of starvation in Gaza. Between 10 and 20% of the population are alleged to be starving. I'm not there again. Hearsay. You hear it and you say it, and then it becomes the truth. Isn't that great? Just like Thomas Paine was talking about the Virgin Mary. We got some problems with our epistemology. You know what I believe? I believe for myself because it works for me. What I also believe is that works for me can be taught as a system of becoming. And that system is taught in secret societies all over the world. It's just not taught to you. I learned it because I've been a product of several secret societies. I've said that. People are going to say I'm a Mason or something now. When I talk like this, people get nervous. No, I was raised in an Orthodox Jewish culture. That's a secret society with secret knowledge. I walked out of that thing when they didn't have the secret knowledge that I needed at the time. Like, how do I keep from dying? Do what your doctor tells you. Hey, I'm out. That's not a secret. I can read that on a box of Post Toasties. And then I went into other secret societies, seeking knowledge to search for truth. You know, every one of our schools, every public school could be not a secret society, but a place where the really important issues of life are taught, like how to compress morbidity.
I'm an advocate for people need to be taught how to make a fire. Just a little campfire. It's the most
How
essential
about,
thing ever.
how about harvest a deer?
Yeah, that too. Gun
Wouldn't that be
safety.
great?
I bet you a lot of, I mean, if you look at a lot of the gun deaths in America, third place is accidental deaths. And I really feel like if we made a common thing to teach gun safety in schools, you would see a huge drop in those deaths.
You're bringing up something that I'm really, you doom scroll, right, on X?
Yeah.
And then they have these people where they shoot themselves with no gun safety.
Yeah.
And I saw a couple shorts like that. I can't watch it anymore.
It happens, but it's because, I mean, what do you expect? We have kids playing Fortnite, which, like, fun game. I don't play it myself, but when we are raised in a culture where guns are such a prevalent thing, but then nobody has a clue how to actually use it, yeah, accidents are going to happen.
You know, if you've never had a gun or you have one for the first time, let me dispel this accident. Don't point your gun at anything you don't plan to kill. When you make that kind of your fundamental, because it's got two ends. So you have to actually point it at yourself, which I'm not going to delve into it by being judgmental. Keep the business end pointed away from you and anybody else that's living and breathing, and we won't have any accidents.
Yeah.
That's
When I
right.
was in gun safety, the first rule they ever taught us was treat every gun as if it's loaded.
I'm not even going to go that far.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say don't point at anything if you don't want to kill it. It's kind of the same thing, but a little different. Meanwhile, while people are starving, allegedly, the Israeli Knesset on this past Wednesday passed a non-binding resolution that calls for the annexation of the occupied West Bank by a vote of 71-13. In other words, they're testing it out before they do it for real. So if anybody wants to say that Israel is on a path to expand its territory, well, that one's written down. It's not hearsay. Meanwhile, France has announced that it will recognize the Palestinian state. Yes, President Macron came out this last week and said at the next meeting of the United Nations, France will throw in with those countries that want a two-state solution. Meanwhile, while we're in the neighborhood, Iran acknowledges that U.S. airstrikes have destroyed their nuclear facilities, but not their will to do nuclear research. Yes, they said quite directly they've been set back, but their nuclear program lies not in the ruins, but in the hearts and minds of their scientists. I guess that's why Israel assassinates as many as they can get their bullets into.
Mm.
President Trump came out and said that if Iran pops up again with this nuclear ambition, Iran will get bombed once again if necessary. And in response to that, Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian, I love reading that name, Pezeshkian. The fact that I can even read names like that makes me feel like a native. Masoud Pezeshkian has said his country remains prepared and vigilant for any war Israel might launch against it, while conveying that he is not optimistic about the ceasefire continuing to hold. Quote, "We are fully prepared for any new Israeli military move, and our armed forces are ready to strike deep inside Israel once again," Pezeshkian told Al Jazeera in a fresh interview. Well, peace is sometimes just a period of rearmament. Meanwhile, there's been a huge spate of mystery fires and explosions throughout Iran, which are almost certainly Israeli-sponsored sabotage. Let's play number 3 and go on to a happier note.
I do know that the tariffs, the cost of tariffs on automobiles, which will begin, I don't know, August 1st or whatever, will be paid by people like me, the consumer. The question is, Does the president realize the consumer pays the tariffs?
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with that. Is who pays the tariffs is a choice. And what we've seen thus far is that the manufacturers are eating a substantial portion of the tariffs and taking it into their profit margins. So you might see, for instance, Toyota hasn't raised prices, and they may choose to go for market share rather than raising prices.
Could you please put up the TireGet? Put up TireGet? And this is something that I'm going to do because I forget to do it. We're in the tire business, and I say this because it's really noteworthy that only 25% of the consumer tires that you put on your vehicles are built here in the United States. In fact, we import tires that are up on the TireGet website, a brand called Vantage, a brand called Achilles. These are no-name brands built overseas in foreign-owned factories, and the quality of these tires is sensational. The quality of these low-cost tires, people go, I don't want to buy low-cost tires. They're no good. How are them tires working that I sold you that were low-cost, Tanner?
And cars driving.
No problems, right?
No problem.
Good traction in the winter. It's all good in the hood, right?
Yeah.
Okay. These tires are just as good as anything you could pay 3 times as much for. And they're imported, and I'm going to tell you, when you need your tires, go to TireGet.com, and what you're going to find there is a deal. And I'm going to tell you, I import tires. I have to, because only 25% of the tires I sell are manufactured in this great country. The price increase. President Trump's tax on consumer tires is, are you ready? 25%. 25%. Under a Section 232 investigation and order, there is a 25% tax on all consumer tires. 25%. Did I make that clear?
Yeah.
The price of tires went up 6%. So what Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, is saying that the manufacturers are absorbing large percentages of these tariffs and reducing their profit margins, or President Trump says China's going to pay for it. It's not untrue. They're not paying for all of it, but they're paying for most of it. Now, will that be this way over the long period of time? I don't know. I don't know how this is going to play out, and neither does anybody else.
I think the most important thing that he said, that I feel like, so even the comments on this X post, so many people are not talking about his first thing. Who pays the tariffs is a choice. And you have it on the news that matters. You vote with your money. So it's like, why are we sitting here? I mean, I know that tires are so essential to our life, so that can be an argument, but it's our choice. If it's too high, don't pay for it. That's bargaining. Then that company is going to sit there and go, well, we got to make money somehow. Let's lower the cost a little bit. We'll eat a little bit of the tariffs. It is our choice. If you don't want to pay that, or if whatever your margarita maker is now so expensive, don't buy it.
Of course, this is the great fear now, that higher prices will lead to less economic activity. Therefore, our GDP, our gross domestic product, might not grow. And you know what they're really saying? If it doesn't grow, there's less debt. And if there's less debt, the whole system collapses upon itself. Our system is debt-based. It is based on the continuous issuance of debt. If there's less activity and there's less debt, the whole system could crumble. They have turned us into consumers and economic units to be exploited. What Tanner is saying is just don't do it. Don't do it. Don't take a walk in the park instead of buying the margarita ice maker at Costco.
Yeah.
You don't need a margarita ice maker. It is a choice. And here's what's happening right now in the tire business, because this I know. The manufacturers ate about half of the 25%. The steamship companies lowered their price. We lowered our margin. Everybody got lower in margin to make the increase to offset that 25%. 6% is not a day killer in the tire business. And if you need tires, you go to TireGet, man, you'll save a ton of money because we keep the price right, because we know you have to have the right price. So Bessent is correct. And we are living in a moment where Wall Street's getting used to this trade readjustment, Because everybody's going, wow, it's more revenue. More revenue is good. More. I mean, the consumers are going to pay for some of it. Everybody's paying for it. And the U.S. government's raising money, and Trump is turning out trade deals left and right. He's got a new deal with the European Union, the mother of all deals. 15% they're going to pay on everything they bring into the United States, which is an increase of about 6 times. Yeah, 6 times. That's a 6 times increase on tariff revenue of what was coming in from the European Union. That is a big increase. And they're going to buy a lot of American energy too, and weapons, according to President Trump. And also, since we saw you last, Japan cut a deal with the United States at 15%. We're talking about tremendous increases in government revenue. And in fact, as we just were talking about, it's not all coming out of the consumer's pocket, at least not today. This is a major realignment of our economy. I don't know how it's going to turn out, and neither does anybody else. And I'm going to tell you why. You can't predict the future past an event that's never happened before. And this has never happened before. So we're going to have to see how this plays out in the long term. I'll tell you, in terms of the bond market, and I said this in the last episode, the bond market is kicking. Everybody wants to buy U.S., even though we're $37 trillion in debt, and we should be on the do not sell list, because, you know, when you got that much debt, you're going broke. Nope.
Credit score is pretty bad.
Yeah, but the money's pouring in.
Yeah.
Because look at what President Trump is doing to reindustrialize America and to balance our current accounts with all this new revenue. We just had a fantastic 20-year bond auction last week. It was the best one of 2025. Meanwhile, President Trump has pledged to prevent the imposition of U.S. central bank digital currency. It's just words today, a pledge, but he wants to pass legislation that prevents it. The money's going to pour in here. Pour in. Let's not be too quick to judge. You know, you Democrats, I love you. If you're watching, I'm so glad you're here. But, you know, like, for example, with Royce White, when all the attacks are, this goes for the Republicans too, when all your attacks are what they call ad hominem, personal, man, what if he grows up and it doesn't work anymore? Because he's not any of those things. And what if the economy booms a year from now and we're just kicking it? And then all these people that are saying doom and gloom is coming, and then a young man like Tanner's got more money in his pocket than he's ever had. He's going to say, it must be President Trump. Could happen, right?
Could happen. I hope.
Right.
I hope it happens.
But, you know, hey, you could buy your tires from TireGet.com and go to the Free People store, and Tanner's definitely going to have more money in his pocket.
Don't forget to do the 3% FPR code. You can get a little more savings.
A little bit extra off at the checkout. Now, you know why we got that there? We just want to know that you came from the podcast. It's just a way for us to be sure how this advertising is working. Politically, lots of things are happening, as always. Columbia has agreed to pay a $200 million fine. That would be my daughter's alma mater soon. She's a senior. Man, is she something. I went out with her on Sunday. It was my birthday. We went out for a beautiful sit-down. Not a cruel word was spoken. It was wonderful. But man, this girl is sharp like a knife.
Yeah.
I mean, she's going to be a Columbia graduate in finance and econ. What do you want to do, honey? She's going to work in the financial industry. She's going for the cash. I had a chance to do that in 1976. I chose not to. I was just not interested in it. In fact, I was laying in bed last night. Mrs. Professor Penn wanted to talk about money at 10:15. I said, I want to talk about money. She said, well, how could that be? I said, well, it's not that important to me. She said, money? She said, that's important 24 hours a day. I said, well, not for me. See, people are different.
Yeah.
This goes into your religious idea.
How so?
I think about God 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
I try not to have anything, when things intervene and cloud that, and I get separated from my search for truth, I have to reset.
Yeah.
But some people feel that way about money.
Well, it's like for this is how I kind of think of it is like if you're a carpenter, you are super involved and it's always on your mind of building houses. You're not thinking solely about the nails, the tool you need, you know? So when you think, "Oh, money's the most important thing," you're missing the point. Money's the
I
tool.
wouldn't want you to take that up around the campfire
Yeah.
because there's an equal and opposite reaction to that that says, uh, you're crazy if you're not focused on the money. This is why we have to come up with a new language to bridge this gap, a new culture, a cultural evolution, which allows all of these ideas to come together. Otherwise, we're going to be ruled over. President Trump continues to surprise. He has slashed 25% of the IRS workforce. Having
Nice.
been through many audits,
Screw those IRS
it
agents.
does not hurt my feelings to think. And of course, I don't steal from the government, and they still come in from time to time, all the time, to try to rip those wings off my back. But that's okay. That's just part of the game. But the big political news of the week is Tulsi Gabbard refers President Obama for criminal charges after debunking the Russia hoax. That's a big deal. Now, President Obama is not going to get prosecuted because he gets to live under the same immunity that President Trump was just recently granted by our great Supreme Court. But there's many others whose faces are on the thumbnail today, like Brennan and Clapper and Avril Haines and McCabe and Susan Rice, that do not enjoy the same presidential immunity. And if what people are alleging is true, this is crazy because these people are being accused of, guess what? The big T word, treason.
Yeah.
Treason. Well, here's a lie. Putin and the Russian government helped Trump win the 2016 election. We know that's a lie now, or at least we have the hearsay that it's a lie, but actually the documents are published, but the documents could be a lie. But let's just go with what we are being told is the truth and a lie. The lie is that Putin and the Russian government helped Trump win the 2016 election. That's a lie. It didn't happen. The truth is President Obama, former director of the CIA, John Brennan, and others fabricated the Russian hoax, suppressed intelligence showing Putin was preparing for a Clinton victory, manufactured findings from shoddy sources, disobeyed the intelligence community standards, and knowingly lied to the American people to undermine President Trump. Wow. Lie. The fabricated Steele dossier was not used as a source in the Obama administration's January 2017 intelligence community assessment of the 2016 election. That's a lie. It was used. Not only did the CIA Director Brennan, FBI Director Comey, DNI Director Clapper, and others include the Steele dossier in the 2017 intelligence community assessment, they overruled senior intel officials who warned them it was fabricated and should not be used. Here's a lie. The Obama administration's January intelligence community assessment was an independent intelligence community product produced with apolitical analysis. The truth is, Obama ordered the intelligence community to create an intelligence community assessment they knew was false, promoting a contrived narrative with the intent of undermining the legitimacy and power of a duly elected president of the United States, Donald Trump.
So kind of like what they did with the Hunter Biden laptop situation. Not exactly like this, but same thing. Yeah.
Same thing.
Wow.
Not the search for truth, but the search for an outcome. So then the question becomes, if we're talking about treason, who are they serving? Treason is defined in the U.S. Constitution as, quote, levying war against them, the United States, or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. Levying war against the United States, or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. So the allegation is that these people committed treason, levying a war, in this case an information war, because we have this frame that war is bombs dropping. No, the highest level of war is this information war, the war for the hearts and minds of the people. That is war. That's war. I went through this thing with Mrs. Professor Paine. She goes, "Where's the bombs?" This is like 3 or 4 years ago. Oh, she's not doubting me now. She sees the war now. She sees it. But she didn't then, and a lot of people didn't see it. But this is war. This is an information war. So if they're doing this, who are they giving aid and comfort to? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, that
Could
gets a
this
little
be-
confusing.
Well, could this be like patriots and Tories? Do we have an ideology at foot in our country that's globalist, which is in contradiction to and in competition with the idea of the Republic of the United States of America? Well, I've been saying it, and I'm going to say it louder and louder. We have a foreign ideology in our country because our Constitution is so badass, it admits these ideologies into the public square because of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to assemble. But that doesn't mean these ideologies are not contrary to the concept of a Republican form of government, which is promised to me in my Constitution. So perhaps we have to think about what treason means in a new way. Because the old way, Benedict Arnold, you've heard of Benedict Arnold?
No,
You never heard the name Benedict Arnold?
it doesn't ring any bells.
Ooh, he is our sine qua non traitor. Benedict Arnold in 1780 was a general in the Revolutionary Continental Army during the American Revolution. He is our most infamous traitor because he conspired with the British to surrender West Point, which, of course, at that time was a fort, not a military academy. It was a crucial American stronghold, and he was going to surrender it in exchange for money and a commission in the British Army. His plot was discovered before he could execute it, and he escaped to the British side. Serving as a British brigadier general, he led attacks against American forces. He was never captured, and he was never tried for treason. His name, though, is now synonymous with betrayal.
I don't think that the British get enough heat. The more and more I learn about the British, man, we do not hate on them enough. A lot of people always joke about their teeth and stuff, but
That's
oh,
because they took over our academic institutions, and
it's becoming a lot more evident to me.
they've impregnated us they've impregnated us with two foreign ideologies, Darwinism and Marxism.
They've just infiltrated America. I don't know. Sometimes I really do think that after we declared ourselves as our own country, they sat back and were like, okay, we're not going to win this way. How do we infiltrate?
Information war.
Yes.
Information war.
It's all tying together now.
Information war. And these conspirators, if it's true, Brennan Clapper, Susan Rice, McCabe from the FBI, Comey from the FBI, Clapper, Director of National Intelligence, they conspired to create an information war to undermine a nationalist movement seeking to restore the viability of the Republic.
Yeah. And then that's the original thing that the British were upset about the Americans doing. Was,
Oh boy, if we get this thinking going, these dudes could hang.
yeah.
They could hang because we're going to talk about some of these people that got hung. Aaron Burr. Former Vice President Aaron Burr, another name you might, if you don't know Benedict Arnold.
I'm learning that I need to, I took a college class for early American history, but I obviously did
Got to
not.
make a comeback on this, right?
Yeah. I'm
A
going to
little
have
bit
to
deeper
really
dive. Aaron Burr was a vice president who was actually tried for treason, arrested and tried for allegedly plotting to separate Western states from the Union and seize parts of Louisiana Territory. The Louisiana Territory for who? For himself.
What a selfish
He
dude.
was running his own game. He said it's good to be king. So he went off on a plot. Burr was ultimately acquitted, in part because the legal definition of treason required proof of an overt act of levying war rather than just conspiracy or intent. The case was crucial in establishing a high bar for treason convictions in the United States and highlighting the strict interpretation of treason defined in the Constitution. Well, they didn't all get off. Have you heard of John Brown?
No.
Wow.
This is a history class for me
John
right now.
Brown was an abolitionist. That means he was anti-slavery. And he was prosecuted by the state of Virginia for treason following his failed raid on the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, aimed at sparking a widespread slave uprising. The trial in Charlestown, Virginia, which is now part of West Virginia, lasted only a week, with Brown defending his actions as morally justified and against slavery. He was convicted on all counts, and guess what they did with him? They hung him by the neck until he was dead, because it was a treasonous act. He attacked the United States of America.
And they were claiming that him aiding the enemy, so the enemy in this context was the slaves? Or because this is where I'm starting to get confused with the definition of treason, is it's painting it like it's an outside enemy.
There was laws, and the laws included that slavery was illegal. He attacked a U.S. military arsenal at Harper's Ferry. He attacked the U.S. government. Kind of like that guy that blew up the federal building in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
I think he got killed also, executed, right?
So the definition of treason does not always need to be that they are aiding an enemy. They can be the enemy. It's just an attack on the government.
It could be attacking the United States, an attack on the United States. This is very interesting. Is a information war attack on President Trump to undermine his presidency an attack on the United States? That's what we're talking about. You're bringing up the important point. You know, Tanner, you're really helping me today, because I want to bring out the point that the definition of treason and its application in trial is culture bound. Please play number 5.
For American troops stationed in the Pacific during World War II, not much felt like home, but each day they got a little slice of life in the States, courtesy of the popular Japanese radio host they branded Tokyo Rose.
Greetings, everybody. This is your number one enemy.
The show was called The 0 Hour and mixed popular American music with messages from Japanese propagandists, hoping to make their American military audience long for home and abandon the fight.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's all for now, enemies, but there'll be more of the same tomorrow night.
When the war ended and American occupation forces began rounding up war criminals and traitors, no prize was greater than finding Tokyo Rose. But despite public opinion, the woman known as Tokyo Rose was not a traitor, but a loyal American. Her name was Iva Toguri, and her segment of the 0 Hour was called Music for You, and was purely entertainment. Iva was born in Los Angeles, California, and raised fully American. In July of 1941, she traveled to Japan to visit a sick relative. As tensions rose between the U.S. and Japan, Iva tried to return home, but her passport application was still delayed at the State Department when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. With the U.S. and Japan at war, Iva Toguri was trapped in Japan. Iva was soon contacted by the Japanese secret police, which ordered her to renounce her American citizenship. She refused. In 1943, she was hired as a typist at Radio Tokyo. At that time, Radio Tokyo had just begun broadcasting 0 Hour, which was produced by a group of Allied POWs and Japanese-American hosts. In November of 1943, Toguri was added as a host, using the moniker Orphan Ann on air. She chose that name because she felt like an orphan in Japan. But our troops called her Tokyo Rose. As host, Iva actually helped the U.S. military. The troops loved her corny narrations and found the popular songs she played entertaining. When the war ended, American occupation authorities began rounding up war criminals and American expatriates for trial. Because she had refused to renounce her citizenship, Iva was still subject to U.S. law throughout her time at Radio Tokyo. That allowed prosecutors to investigate her for treason. Iva was quickly arrested and brought back to the U.S. in 1948. She was then charged with 8 counts of treason and was convicted on 1 count, specifically for mentioning the loss of American ships. No recording of this broadcast exists, and the accusation was never proved. Nevertheless, Iva was sentenced to 10 years in prison and fined $10,000. Iva spent 6 years and 2 months in prison and was paroled in January of 1956. 20 years later, Chicago Tribune reporter Ron Yates picked up on her story and discovered that 2 prosecution witnesses had perjured themselves. Not only that, but they had been forced to do so by U.S. authorities on the threat of being tried for treason themselves. Further investigations and a feature on 60 Minutes brought Tokyo Rose back into the limelight. As word of this miscarriage of justice spread, momentum began to build for a presidential pardon. On January 19, 1977, President Gerald Ford formally and unconditionally pardoned Iva Toguri, restoring her citizenship which had been stripped away upon her conviction. In 2005, the American Veterans Center directors decided her story of perseverance and patriotism was worth remembering. In early 2006, AVC President Jim Roberts honored Toguri with the AVC's Edward J. Herlihy Citizenship Award. An emotional Iva Toguri later said that receiving the award was the most memorable moment in her life. Never before, even with her pardon, had she been so honored. Sadly, she died just 8 months later, on September 26, 2006. Iva Toguri was always a proud and loyal American. She was wrongly convicted by our government and suffered because of that for years. But ultimately, that same government set the record straight, and now history needs to remember her as the patriot she was.
Was she a patriot? I don't know. It's hearsay. The whole thing is a story. And it's a story that was part of the information war. After World War II, she was a treasonous criminal that was convicted. Downstream, when it was all good with the Japanese and let me tell you, when I started selling tires, this was 1979. I actually was importing tires from it was a famous company, but nobody knew it at the time. Bridgestone, everybody knows Bridgestone now. But in 79, nobody heard the name. And I was bringing these tires in, and I get on the phone and try to sell them. Nobody'd heard of it, and the guy'd go, "Where are they made?" "Japan." And there was still so much anti-Japanese sentiment. People would scream at me for importing Japanese-produced tires in 1979. 1979, right about the time that Gerald Ford pardoned Tokyo Rose. It was an issue of cultural reconciliation because Japan had become our great ally in the Far East. And to this day, they're our great ally in the Far East, working with us, we the people, to thwart the ambitions of China. So Tokyo Rose was a pawn in a great game. I'm sure she didn't wake up when she was in 6th grade and say, "Let me become a pawn in the great game." Things just happen for reasons we don't understand. And that great game goes on to this day. We didn't have time to get to it, but if you are not aware, Tanner, are you aware that Thailand and Cambodia went to war with each other?
No.
Not well reported. We're going to pick that up on our next Professor Penn podcast. But this conflict and this war in the Far East that goes back to World War II and before, into the late 1800s, the ambitions of the Asian countries to throw off the empire, creating an empire of their own. It's not that they don't want empire. They just don't want it to be the Anglo-Saxon empire. And the Japanese are our guy. They're our guys in the Far East. So that was part of cultural reconciliation. Treason is culture bound. Treason is of the moment. And the question of today is, are these people really conspirators and do they really commit treasonous acts? Well, Tulsi Gabbard has referred this case to the Justice Department, referred the case for criminal evaluation, and we're going to see how this plays out over the next weeks and months to come. Got into some very esoteric ideas today. How are we going to unite people of faith so that the republic can be maintained? That is the political question, because religions are political. We are told that they are not because that makes it convenient for pastors to get 501c3 tax-exempt status for their churches. But again, just like President Trump's administration allowing people of faith to get together in government off hours and pray together and to try to proselytize their fellow workers, this 501c3 exemption is going to be removed so that preachers can preach in the pulpit about politics. Got a lot of change going on. It's time for us, we the political activists of this country, to organize this change and make it effective. Thank you very much for joining. It's David Penn, your host. I'm so glad to be with you. Look forward to seeing you again on Thursday night. Tanner, thank you very much for coming in early this morning.
Of course.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you very much.